At 0342 hours Persian Gulf time, the AN/SPY-6 radar aboard the USS Donald Cook detected something that would trigger the most devastating American naval response since Desert Storm. 4 heat signatures rising from the Iranian coastline near Bandar-e-Jask. Trajectory analysis took 3.7 seconds. Conclusion: ballistic missile attack inbound. Estimated time to impact, 4 minutes, 12 seconds. The 338 American sailors aboard had less than 5 minutes to either stop those missiles or die trying. What happened next would leave Iranian military commanders questioning everything they thought they knew about American rules of engagement. Hey everyone, it's John A.G. The story I'm about to tell you represents one of the most lopsided military exchanges in modern history. 4 missiles in, 32 missiles out, 27 minutes from first detection to complete destruction of Iran's attack infrastructure. And I'm going to break down every single detail of how America turned an act of aggression into a masterclass of overwhelming force. The missiles climbing toward the Donald Cook were Zolfaghar-3s, Iran's newest short-range ballistic missile, with a claimed range of 700 kilometers and a 580-kilogram warhead. The IRGC Aerospace Force had positioned the mobile launchers 340 kilometers from the destroyer's patrol area 3 days earlier, moving only at night to avoid American satellite coverage. Or so they believed. Unknown to the launch crews preparing their missiles in the pre-dawn darkness, an RQ-4 Global Hawk surveillance drone had been tracking their movements since they left the depot outside Shiraz. Every position change, every camouflage netting adjustment, every fuel truck visit had been cataloged and transmitted to the Combined Air Operations Center at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. The Americans knew exactly where the launchers were. They knew exactly when the crews arrived for the night shift. And they knew, within a 15-minute window, when the attack would come. The question wasn't whether the Donald Cook would detect the launch. The question was what would happen after she did. At 0342 and 4 seconds, the ship's Combat Information Center erupted into controlled chaos. The tactical action officer had trained for this moment for 18 years. His voice cut through the alarms with a clarity that belied the stakes. 4 Vampire tracks bearing 035, ballistic profile, designate hostile, batteries release. Those 2 words, batteries release, transferred weapons authority to the ship's Aegis combat system. From that moment, humans would monitor, the computers would kill. At 0343, the first SM-3 Block 2IA missile erupted from the forward vertical launch system. The interceptor was designed to destroy ballistic missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere, and the Zolfaghar-3s were well within its engagement envelope. The missile accelerated to Mach 10 within seconds, its kinetic warhead tracking the lead Iranian missile through infrared sensors that could detect a candle flame from 500 kilometers away. The intercept occurred at 127 kilometers altitude, still technically in space. The Iranian missile didn't explode, it disintegrated. At those velocities, there's no need for explosive warheads. Mass times velocity squared equals destruction. The SM-3 hit the Zolfaghar at a closing speed exceeding 15,000 kilometers per hour. The Iranian missile simply ceased to exist. 3 more intercepts followed in rapid succession. The second Zolfaghar died at 0343 and 42 seconds. The third at 0344 and 08 seconds, the fourth at 0344 and 31 seconds, total engagement time from first detection to fourth kill, 2 minutes and 27 seconds. The Donald Cook's crew had trained for years to achieve this outcome. They executed flawlessly, but the real story was just beginning. At 0345, while debris from the 4th Zolfaghar was still falling toward the Gulf, Captain Marcus Torres picked up the red phone connecting him directly to 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. The conversation lasted 11 seconds. He spoke 4 words beyond the authentication codes. Requesting Alpha Strike authorization. The response came in 3. Authorization granted, execute. What Captain Torres activated in that moment wasn't a proportional response. It wasn't a measured retaliation. It was the complete and systematic destruction of every asset connected to the attack on his ship, and it had been planned down to the individual target coordinates for over 3 years. At 0346, the guided missile submarine USS Ohio, positioned 80 nautical miles south of the Strait of Hormuz, opened her massive missile deck hatches for the first time in combat. The Ohio carries 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles in 22 vertical launch tubes, each tube holding 7 missiles in a revolver-style configuration. 14 missiles launched in the first salvo, climbing into the night sky before their wings deployed and their turbofan engines ignited for the cruise phase. Simultaneously, the destroyer USS Nitsa, operating northeast of the Donald Cook, contributed 8 Tomahawks. The cruiser USS Philippine Sea added 6 more from her position near Bahrain. And the Donald Cook herself, the ship that had just been attacked, launched 4 Tomahawks from her own VLS cells. 32 missiles in the air within 94 seconds, and they were all converging on Iran. The target list had been refined through years of intelligence collection, satellite reconnaissance, and signals intercepts. It wasn't random, it was surgical devastation. Target Alpha. The Zolfaghar launch site itself, the 4 mobile launchers, the reload missiles still in their transport containers, the command vehicle, the communications array, 8 Tomahawks allocated. Arrival time 0358, target Bravo, the IRGC Aerospace Force Command Bunker at Avaz, 400 kilometers from the launch site, but connected by the secure communications links that had transmitted the attack order. 6 Tomahawks with penetrating warheads designed to defeat exactly this kind of hardened facility. Target Charlie, the Bandar Abbas radar complex that had provided targeting data to the launch crews. 4 missiles timed to arrive simultaneously from different approach vectors, ensuring the operators couldn't even see their own death coming. Targets Delta through Kilo, 7 additional nodes, air defense batteries, communications relays, a drone control facility that had been feeding reconnaissance data to the launch site, each assigned between 2 and 4 missiles depending on the assessed hardening and strategic value. The Tomahawks flew at 50 feet above the water as they crossed the Gulf, invisible to Iranian radar coverage. They used terrain-following navigation as they crossed the coastline, threading through valleys and around known air defense positions. The flight paths had been calculated to minimize exposure and maximize surprise. Some missiles flew an extra 200 kilometers to approach from unexpected directions. At 0358, 16 minutes after the last Iranian missile was intercepted, the first Tomahawks arrived at target Alpha. The Zolfaghar crews had begun post-launch procedures. The mobile launchers were retracting their erector arms. The command vehicle was transmitting telemetry data back to Avaz. No one expected what came next. 8 missiles struck in a 9-second window. The first 2 hit the command vehicle, eliminating leadership and communications simultaneously. The next 4 targeted the mobile launchers themselves, detonating with enough force to trigger sympathetic explosions in the remaining reload missiles. The final 2 struck the fuel and ammunition storage, ensuring nothing would be recoverable. Secondary explosions continued for the next 12 minutes as propellant and warheads cooked off. Satellite imagery captured later would show a crater field where a missile battery had existed 30 seconds earlier. At 0401, Target Bravo received its allocation. The Avaz command bunker had been built to Soviet specifications during the Iran-Iraq War with 3 meters of reinforced concrete protecting the operations center. It wasn't enough. The first 2 Tomahawks struck the communications arrays on the surface, severing the bunker's connection to the outside world. The remaining 4, equipped with penetrator warheads, impacted the bunker itself in a precise sequence designed to breach the hardening layer by layer. The 3rd missile broke through. The 4th detonated inside. Iranian rescue crews would spend 3 days excavating the site. They wouldn't find survivors. At 0403, the Bandar Abbas radar complex went dark. 4 missiles approached from 4 different compass points, their arrival times synchronized to within 0.3 seconds. The primary search radar was struck while actively tracking American aircraft over the Gulf. Its display went from showing multiple contacts to showing nothing at all. The remaining targets fell in sequence over the next 11 minutes. Communications relays that had carried attack coordination. Air defense batteries that had failed to detect the incoming strike. The drone facility that had provided reconnaissance. At 0403, 27 minutes after the first Zolfaghar launch detection, the last Tomahawk detonated over its designated target. 32 missiles, 11 targets, 0 missiles intercepted by Iranian air defense, 0 American casualties, but the American response still wasn't complete. At 0430, as Iranian commanders were still processing the scope of the destruction, 2 F-35A Lightning II stealth fighters from the 421st Fighter Squadron at Al Dhafra Air Base crossed into Iranian airspace completely undetected. Their mission wasn't to drop weapons. It was to deliver a message. The F-35s flew directly over the still-burning wreckage of the Zolfaghar launch site at 35,000 feet. They continued northeast, passing over Shiraz, then Isfahan, then the outskirts of Tehran itself. Iranian air defense radars never detected them. Iranian fighter jets never scrambled to intercept. For 47 minutes, American stealth aircraft operated over Iran with complete impunity. They carried no weapons, because weapons weren't the point. The point was demonstrating that everything the Tomahawks had hit could have been hit by manned aircraft. The point was proving that Iranian air defense was effectively non-existent against American stealth technology. The point was terror. The F-35s exited Iranian airspace over the Caspian Sea, rendezvoused with tankers over Azerbaijan, and returned to Al Dhafra with enough fuel to have done it all over again. The pilots had flown over the enemy capital. They had seen the lights of Tehran below them, and not a single Iranian system had registered their presence. The intelligence community would later confirm that this overflight was revealed to Iranian leadership through deliberate back-channel communications 72 hours after the event. The message was explicit: "We flew over your capital, you never knew. Next time, we'll bring weapons." In the days following the strike, Iranian state media remained uncharacteristically silent. The victory broadcast that had been prepared showing missiles streaking toward American ships was never aired. The coordinated social media campaign celebrating the strike on the Donald Cook was never launched. Instead, emergency services worked frantically at 11 sites across western Iran, and IRGC commanders attended funerals for colleagues who had been at Avaz. The strategic implications extended far beyond the immediate destruction. Intelligence analysts documented a fundamental shift in Iranian behavior. IRGC naval operations in the Gulf decreased by 67% over the following 6 months. Fast attack boats that had routinely approached American ships stayed within 30 nautical miles of their home ports. Reconnaissance drones that had probed carrier groups weekly were grounded indefinitely. The 4-to-32 ratio entered military planning discussions across the region. For every missile fired at an American naval asset, the attacker could expect 8 in return. Not proportional response, not measured retaliation, mathematical annihilation of the attack infrastructure. The USS Donald Cook continued her patrol that morning without interruption. Her crew had intercepted 4 ballistic missiles, witnessed the launch of a 32-missile counterstrike, and returned to normal operations before the sun rose over the Persian Gulf. The ship that Iran had tried to sink became the symbol of everything wrong with their military calculations. Some lessons are taught in staff colleges and wargaming centers. Others are taught with SM-3 interceptors and Tomahawk cruise missiles. Iran received the second kind of lesson at 03:42 hours on a night that changed how every adversary calculates the cost of attacking American naval forces. The 4 Zolfaghar missiles represented years of development, billions in investment, and Iran's best attempt at striking American ships in the Gulf. They lasted 2 minutes and 27 seconds against a single destroyer's missile defense systems. The 32 Tomahawks America launched in response represented something else entirely. Not just capability, but certainty. Not just technology, but will. The absolute guarantee that attacking an American warship won't result in diplomatic protests or proportional gestures or United Nations debates. It will result in the immediate and complete destruction of everyone and everything connected to the attack. The 27 minutes between first detection and last impact redefined deterrence in the Persian Gulf, not because of the missiles themselves, but because of what they proved. American naval forces aren't targets, they're triggers, and pulling that trigger activates a response chain that ends only when the attacker's capability to threaten has been permanently eliminated. Iran tested that system once. They haven't tested it again. I'm John A.G. If you want to see what happens when other nations make the same miscalculation against American forces, you'll want to watch this video next, where we break down China's confrontation with the U.S. Navy. The pattern is identical. So is the outcome. See you there.